What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao in Taipei with the news. There are just 39 days until Taiwan goes to the polls. With time running out to win over undecided voters, two campaigns have revealed new policies. John Van Trieste brings us this election update.
It's a classic whistle-stop campaign appearance for DPP presidential candidate Lai Ching-te. In Taiwan, temple events like these are the perfect chance to meet ordinary people. There's just over a month until the election, and Lai's here on a chilly Taipei day to drum up support. His message is one his party has long promoted, stopping China's long-held ambition to take control of Taiwan by invading if necessary. Lai is not the only one using the time-tested temple approach. Taiwan People's Party candidate Ko Wen-je is visiting one in the outlying Penghu Islands. This is an area where resources, including medical resources, are limited. It's an issue Ke, a former surgeon, understands well. He says he's got a plan for improving medical care here.
其实医疗应该要整合的，我觉得那个医院太分散了，整合起来会有比较才有办法维持那种比较高科技的医疗。
He also says he has plans for better transport and better long-term care for senior citizens and people with disabilities. The Kuomintang is also presenting new policy ideas. Top of the list is mental health care for young people. Both candidate Hou You-yi and his running mate Zhao Xiaokong say it's a topic they've been thinking about since they first met. On April 27, 1998, a 34-year-old mentally ill man armed with knives hijacked a bus, taking around 20 hostages. Hou You-yi, then deputy head of the Criminal Investigation Bureau, was called to the scene. Media personality Zhao Xiaokong was also there to help negotiate. With help from others, the hostages were released and the crisis was resolved. Looking back years later, Hou says mental health in the country still needs addressing. He says the limited free counseling sessions offered to 15 to 30-year-olds don't go far enough. Meanwhile, Zhao's taken aim at the ruling DPP's plan to phase out nuclear power. He says nuclear is the way the rest of the world is going. At this appearance with Hou in southern Taiwan, in areas spotted with fish farms, he criticized the growing number of solar panels taking over what used to be fish ponds.
为了把核废掉，天然气增加，然后呢，绿电来不及就到处种，所以你为了这个光电的利益，你让渔民的利益损失嘛。
Personality and party loyalty have been big factors in this campaign. But with time running out to appeal to undecided voters, the candidates are starting to go heavy on policy, finally letting voters know what it is they'll be voting for. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Meanwhile, prosecutors in Taipei are looking at whether the KMT and TPP broke election rules during coalition talks. A proposed joint ticket never emerged because those talks collapsed. But a complaint alleges that the two sides offered each other bribes in return for concessions while those talks were still going on. Both Kuomintang presidential candidate Hou You-yi and Taiwan People's Party candidate Ko Wen-je are listed in that complaint. Both parties say the investigation is political, with Ke's party calling it a waste of resources. The complaint was filed by a fringe political group that supports Taiwan independence. The U.S. representative to Taiwan says she hopes her country can continue to cooperate with Taiwan's next president. American Institute in Taiwan director Sandra Oudkirk spoke about election interference and disinformation ahead of Taiwan's upcoming vote. She says U.S. policy toward Taiwan would remain unchanged regardless of who wins.
I want to emphasize that the United States has deep confidence in Taiwan's electoral processes and democratic system. We believe it is for the Taiwan voters to decide their next leader, free from outside interference. And as I have said many times before, the United States is not taking sides in Taiwan's election. We do not have a preferred candidate.
Regional politicians and analysts are warning about Beijing's rising global influence. Several sounded the alarm at the China in the World conference in Taipei. Rick Lau reports.
It's just over a month until national elections here in Taiwan, and all eyes are on China's influence and infiltration of that crucial vote. Here at the China in the World conference, regional political leaders and experts are sharing their experiences of that China threat, whether it's military and economic coercion, cyber attacks or cognitive warfare. In his opening remarks, Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu had this warning.
Taiwan faces Chinese coercion and gray zone tactics on a daily basis. We are not only the constant target of China's intimidation and political coercion, but also a testing ground for China's cognitive warfare.
From visiting politicians from the Philippines, South Korea and Japan, we're hearing a growing sense of urgency in the need to stand up against China's attempts to destabilize the region. Taiwan's message is we are on the front line, but you could be next. Alex Chen and Rick Lowett in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Israel is pressing ahead with an air and ground invasion of the southern Gaza Strip. Residents and journalists say Israeli airstrikes killed and wounded dozens of Palestinians, including in areas where Israel had told people to seek shelter. Most of Gaza's population of nearly 2 million people is now in the south, where intense fighting is taking place. Gaza health authorities say around 900 people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes since a truce between Gaza and Hamas ended. Meanwhile, Israel says the UN has failed to condemn sexual violence against Israeli women. Israeli authorities say the Palestinian militant group Hamas used rape as a weapon of war during its attack on Israel on October 7th. And they say a recent statement by UN Women, a branch of the UN, did not come soon enough. Israel's ambassador was joined by former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and former Facebook executive Sheryl Sandberg at the UN on Monday. Hamas denies the accusations. The UN has begun investigating potential war crimes during the Israel-Hamas conflict, but Israel says it will not cooperate, calling the UN's commission biased. It is carrying out its own investigation into the Hamas attack. China's foreign ministry says Beijing has the right to operate more than 100 military ships in the South China Sea.
中方渔船在该海域作业必封合理合法。 非方不应该说三道四。
The comments come after the Philippines accused Beijing of illegally swarming an area of the sea that both countries claim as their own. China has been blocking attempts by the Philippines to deliver supplies to one of its ships beached on a reef. China claims the entirety of the South China Sea, but there is no legal basis to those claims. Now, for more on the situation in the South China Sea, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Aaron Matthew LaRosa, a security analyst based in Washington, D.C.
How common is it for China to deploy, hundreds, more than 100 of these vessels in the South China Sea?
So this is actually really common Chinese employment. They usually employ large fishing fleets within the Philippine EEZ. Most of the time, they do not respond to Philippine Coast Guard calls or Philippine Navy calls. They just go unimpeded. And frankly, the Philippines can't really do much. There's just too many of them. They don't have enough assets. Manila also doesn't really want to provoke an incident. There's a lot of things that could happen.
And these ships that we're seeing, are these military ships or are these ordinary fishing vessels?
So the Chinese have a very, let's just say, a hybrid distinction with these vessels. Officially, they do look like fishing vessels, and they could be. China has massive fishing fleets that roam the world's waters. We know Taiwan deals with them a lot. However, in the Philippines and the South China Sea, they do employ their maritime militia a lot that use similar-looking vessels. And frankly, it's really hard to distinguish what crews are on these vessels, what exactly they're doing.
Is there anything that the Philippines can do to kind of counter this aggression from China?
Manila is taking an extremely nuanced stance to the current issue. The National Task Force Celestial, that's the Philippine government agency responsible for all the issues in the area, they flatly stated resupplying the BRP Sierra Madre on a Yukon shoal is the Philippines the Philippines' job. Yeah, so the BRP Sierra Madre is this rusting amphibious warship from the Second World War that the Philippine Navy beached on Second Thomas Shoal. The Philippines calls it Yukon Shoal, and they beached it because they do not want any other claimants, specifically China, to take that shoal and reclaim it. So the Philippines has a permanent presence there. The Chinese, however, have been making ever assertive attempts to blockade the shoal and deprive the Philippine soldiers there of necessities, and they want to drive them out. So it's been a really interesting situation, to say the least, within the past year. We've seen way more Chinese actions against resupply missions.
With this increased military presence from both China and the Philippines, is there any concern that an incident could maybe miscalculate into a broader conflict in that area?
But the real issue in the region is it's Southeast Asian countries, not even just the Philippines, like ASEAN, Vietnam, that are really trying to make a good effort here to establish code of conduct, to establish rules and norms. But the Chinese don't pick up the phone. They rarely engage in goodwill, and we see these incidents where the Philippine ships are just trying to get through, and then you have these massive Chinese cutters just trying to ram them. And that does not look like an accident, to be fair. It really does not look like an accident. You have a cutter going straight into a really small resupply boat. So people do bring up the issue of miscalculation. But frankly, we're seeing a lot of moves from China that are edging closer and closer to a risky incident that are clearly not through miscalculation or a simple accident in the heat of the moment.
Now, security analyst Aaron Matthew LaRosa speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. South Korea's defense ministry says it has launched a rocket carrying a satellite to be used for environmental monitoring. It's the South's third rocket launch since March last year. It comes amid a growing space race with North Korea after Pyongyang launched its first military spy satellite in November. Back in Taiwan, people are being warned not to eat an invasive crab species that has appeared in the south. Experts say this spiky red-clawed spider crab may be poisonous. This species is native to Central America and was first recorded near Taiwan in 2012. But fishers have recently been catching up to 1,000 of the crabs a day. Some researchers believe distant water fishing vessels brought the species to Taiwan.
那个时候只是推论说，可能是因为它本身也没有食用价值，应该是被一些渔船他们出外捕鱼的时候混货，然后滞留在他们的压舱水或是什么，然后到了台湾他们换水的时候刚好把它放出来。
It's the third and final day of the Chingsan Temple pilgrimage, one of Taipei's largest religious events. And the city's Wanhua district is celebrating what locals call a Little New Year. A big party for a deity's birthday. It's the last day of the Manga Chingsan Temple's 3-day pilgrimage. And many temples in Taipei's Wanhua district have geared up to welcome King Chingsan. The ceremony dates back over a century and is recognized as one of Taipei City's intangible cultural assets. The tradition arose because people in Wanhua believe the deity wards off illness and drives away evil spirits. That belief continues up until today. The district was an epicenter of the deadly SARS outbreak of 2003. At that time, the temple held a parade like this to address residents' fear of then unknown disease. Unlike other temple pilgrimages that often travel long distances around Taiwan, King Chingsan only patrols this one district.
正王是我们地方的守护神，这样啊，大家都非常欢迎他来。然后现在结合有一些南部的宫庙一起上来，会越来越热闹。
Bye. The Chingsan Temple celebration is one of the top 3 religious ceremonies in Taipei. It's so significant that all 3 presidential candidates made an appearance to pay tribute. But most importantly, the event preserves Wanhua's cultural identity. Every year around this time, locals expect to see performers representing different deities walking the streets, free food on offer at local temples, and firecrackers going off all around the district. And many residents wouldn't dream of missing it.
我自己觉得这是个宗教信仰，是给我们很鼓励、很正面的一环。当我们有时候很无助的时候，我觉得这一环是给我们信心。
我从小时候就开始走这个正头了，对，走到已经长大了，然后就是有什么活动，我们都会去参加。
With a party this big, there's little doubt King Chingsan will happily watch over Wanhua District for years to come. Thank you for tuning in to What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out this footage of cancer survivors and patients climbing Mexico's highest peak. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and I'll see you later on TaiwanPlus News.
For more news from Taiwan and the world, follow Taiwan Plus on social media.